everyone, my name is Rafime Majana from BSF1B, and today we are going to tackle about language and communication. So, lesson 1, the nature of language. Language is the man's finest asset, the creation of a wonderful and complex human capacity. So, language makes us unique from other living organisms because we are the only living organism that has a language and communication. What is really a language? Linguists take that only if a language has a system of rules, also known as grammar, a sound structure or the phonology or the tone, and a vocabulary or lexicon can be considered as a language. These are the criteria for the recognition of a language as a means of communication. Like, for example, a monkey, ang way sa monkey para mag-communicate to the other monkeys is through making sounds or magbuhat sila og gesture to communicate sa other monkeys. While sa ato a humans is maka-communicate ta sa other humans through speaking or by using a language para kamo duha or kita duha is magkasinabot. So, language acquisition. Children learn the vocabulary used by other inside the group as they grow. So, ang language acquisition is mo ni siya ang language which is mo yato first nga mabalaan or ma-learn ni nato siya sa ato ang surroundings. Like, for example, sa ato panimalay, like, ang ato ang first na language, ang madungog nato na language sa ato balay is ang Magbisaya. So, the languages that were acquired while growing up, or the first language, is called the mother tongue. So, the next one is language learning. People learn these languages by learning formally or informally while at school. So, examples aning language learning is English and Tagalog. So, usually, before is gina-practice na sa ato ang mga teachers or sa school mismo nga we have to speak in English or in Tagalog. So, muna siya ang example sa language learning. Next is language contact. So, language contact, this contact can result in a new type of language. So, for example, is na kay friend na lahi ilang language na ginagamit tapos ikaw is like kita is nagakuanta speak ta in Bisaya tapos sa sugod if while mag-communicate mo sa sugod medyo challenging yun siya usually dili mo magkasinabatan na while madugay nga sige mo story or sige mo communicate or naamoy contact sa isa't isa madugay is magka-create mo og language or a new type of language na which is kamo duha is magkasinabot mo kato siya nga language inyo gamiton para mag-communicate mo. So, mo na siya one of the examples of language contact. So, language is indeed a complex human capacity. Thus, it is important to be aware of its features and behaviors to be able to use language in contact with others more efficiently and productively. So, any questions, clarifications? If wala, then that's all. Thank you for listening.
Good day everyone. My topic today is all about the communication mode. Different contexts can impact one's communication. Its communication type is governed by a particular circumstances Thus, it is essential to pay attention to the interplay of factors surrounding the context of communication, which may be physical, cultural, social, and physiological in nature. Communication may be then be classified according to the communication mode, context, and purpose and style. So, mayroon daw silang iba't ibang makaka-epekto sa bawat pakikipag-communication, kaya't nararapat na bigyan natin ito ng pansin. Type of communication according to mode. A message may be conveyed via these types: verbal, non-verbal, and visual. To communication is often to as a verbal, the non-verbal is equally as it enhances one's message. Ang isang mensahe ay maaring maihatid sa pamagitan ng mga uri ng pandiwang hindi pasalita. Ito ay pinapantay niya at sinasaayos at pinapahusay ang mga mensahe. Verbal, non-verbal communication. Effective communication calls for the blending of these two types. One cannot be separated from the another. Ang non-verbal na communication ay naghatid ito ng mensahe tulad ng eye contact, facial expression. Itong verbal communication naman, ito ay pagsulat at pagpasalita. For instance, door-to-door sales demonstrate product knowledge can only be effective if they know how to properly function what they say with proper gestures and a friendly, happy, and pleasant position. Ito ay napapakita, halimbawa, nagbibinta ka ng mga products, kahit anong products, or dapat kinakailangan magaling pakitungo at wasto ang kilos at may mga disposisyon ng iyong mga produkto ay maibinta mo. It is only through this mode that salespeople with excellent communication skills are able to provide the best information needed, thereby convincing the client to patronize their product. So, kinakailangan rito na ikaw ay magaling sa salespeople or sales talk para makumbinsi mo ang mga kliyente mo na bilhin ang iyong produkto. When you were in a senior high school, you trained to blind by verbal and non-verbal moods communication. In fact, with meeting people for the first time, as what you may be experienced many times, an initial meeting when you speak during the first few minutes is significant as it leaves at listening on your listeners. You show interest in meeting these people, acknowledging through an amiable, congenial disposition and a smiling face. Rather than just speaking, it is to use the nonverbal code through a handshake, an approving facial expression, and kind disposition or character. Dapat nagpapakita ka ng interest na interesado ka na makilala sila sa pamamagitan ng magiliw at isang nakangiting mukha, nakaaya-aya. Visual communication. Use visual to information and or message. Some example signs, symbols, imagery, maps, graphs, charts, and diagrams, pictograms, photos, drawings, or illustration, and even various forms of electronic communication. Ang visual na communication ay sumasakop ito sa isang mahalagang lugar sa anumang kapaligiran ng trabaho upang maging madali ang pagkuha ng atensyon. Some example of electronic communication symbols are the images, emoticons, and animation, among others, to convey the writer's emotions or clarify the intent of the message sender. These are achieved through digital mode or text. There are instances when visual communication classified under the nonverbal communication Whatever the classification is, note that this type has now become pervasive in communication. It is deemed important that the receiver of the message is able to decode the meaning correctly by contextualizing the information received. May mga pagkakataon na ang visual na communication ay inuro sa ilalim ng nonverbal na communication at mayroon din itong nakatanggap na mensahe. Visual communication na occupies an important place in any work environment. For instance, during presentation, instructors, major doctors, lawyers, and the like use visual to transfer data and digestible information. Very likely they will have greater success in catching the attention of the audience, making the latter easily recall the information. Ang visual na communication ay ang paggamit ng mga visual na elemento upang maghatid ng mga idea at impormasyon. What makes visual communication even advantageous is that it makes use the technologies that provides up videos and images that really lives on the printed words, making presentation more interesting. This leaves a powerful effect on the audience and prospective clients. Kapakipakinabang ang visual na information sa paggamit ng teknolohiya, nabibigay ito ng larawan at ginagawa niya itong mas kawili-wili.
Types of communication according to context. In this subsection, context and communication is referred to as a composite of people interacting with each other. Communication may also be classified according to context. Intrapersonal, interpersonal, extended, organizational, intercultural communication. Intrapersonal communication. The Latin prefix intra means within or inside. Intrapersonal communication then means talking to oneself. Some label it is a self or inner talk, inner monology, or inner dialogy. Psychologists call it with other names such as self-verbalization or self-statement. Ang intrapersonal na communication ay ang proseso kung saan ang isang individual ay nakipag-usap sa loob ng kanilang sarili na kumikilos bilang parehong nagpapadala at tumatanggap ng mga mensahe at sumasaklaw sa paggamit ng mga hindi binibigkas ng salita upang sinasadya makisali sa pakikipag-usap sa sarili at panloob na pananalita. So, pakikipag-usap sa sarili, mga gawa ng mga imahinasyon at visualization. So that is intrapersonal communication. And interpersonal communication opposite sa intra gihapon. The Latin prefix intermean between, among, and together, and interactive exchange take place as interpersonal communication take place. However, it is a contradiction those necessarily take place since it can only be a simple interaction such as greetings to know a person, ordinary conversation that happen between or among the interactants. This may occur in giants or small group, also known as group communication. So, opposite siya sa intra kay ang kani interpersonal communication kay ka face to face naman jud mo kanang bali nagchika na mo sa personal. So, siya ang opposite sa intra. So, and extended communication. Ang extended communication involves the use of electronic media, unlike before when it only called for the use of television and radio. Nowadays, the description of extended communication may be expanded to include tele, audio, or phone conferencing, video conferencing, Skype calls, and other technological means. For example, linked by a telecommunication system, people who are far from the venue can participate in a meeting or conferencing. So, si teacher nagkandak og kanang kuan klase. So gigamit ang kuan Google Meet, mga social media, Google Meet, Google Classroom. So nagka-communicate gihapon sila in social media parehas anang mga layo, mga kuan parehas karon nga pandemic moong kailangan dili na jud ta maka face to face, so gigamit ang social media nga communication mao na ang extended communication. And that's all. Thank you.
Is all about organizational communications. With this type, the focus is on the role that communications plays in organizational or context. Organizational comprise individuals who work for the company when you graduate. For example, you become a professional either working for a company or putting up your own whatever. You should know that its organizations has expectations that you as communications professional should meet or that you as the owner establish. So kung ikaw nakatrabaho sa company, ipakita jud nimong best nga kaya nimo nga buhaton na labi na ang imong manager nga gipabuhat ka og lisod nga later or unsa ba na nasa inyong business. So be concentrate no para makabuhat kag tarong din focus sa imong pagtrabaho sa kumpanya. So that's it. Next, there are two types of organization structures. So number 1, formal, and number 2, informal. So formal structures allow communications to take place via designs channel of message flow between positions in the organizations. So depende ra pud sa communications nimo no kung agree ba siya ana o dili sa imong gibuhat nga channel message between para sa positions sa in the organizations. So next, this may make use of 4 approach. So natay 4 approach no sa kumpanya o sa business. So number 1, downward communications. Number 2, upward communications. And number 3, horizontal communication. And the last 4, crosswise communications. As the term implies, downward communication is a type that flows from upper to lower positions I and E, president to a manager or supervisor, a manager to an ordinary staff. The flow of communication is top-down or from a supervisor to a subordinate, usually asking certain individuals to perform a certain task, converse, message, transmissions. In upward communication is bottom-up, in which subordinates sends communications to their superior bosses bearing their view, feedback on organization's policies, issue relate to their jobs, and the like. Sa horizontal communication is lateral in approach as it take place among people belonging to the same level, no? Sa horizontal communications, same level lang sila but coming from different departments or units to facilitate performance of ASTRAF. Proper coordination crosswise approach is diagonal in nature as employee. So from different units or departments working or various level communicate with each other. It's of this communications approach. So as its own advantage and disadvantage. So next, intercultural communications. So intercultural communications. Another type of communications is intercultural communications. As the term implies, it is communications between or among the people having different linguistic, religious, ethnic, social, and professional backgrounds. So even gender difference affect communications. Individual having different orientations communicate and interpret message differently. This particular happens with nonverbal. So, unsa man dianing nonverbal communications. Ang nonverbal communications, ito ay isang paghahatid ng sinyalis sa pamamagitan ng isang nonverbal o sa plataporma tulad ng eye contact, facial expressions, no? So man sa mga sinyalis nila kung magkita-kita ang mga puro professional or sa mga business or negosyo ba sa company, no? So next, for instance, so Australians consider eye contact important in assessing the sincerity of a person's, while for Indian, looking straight into the eyes of persons while talking is inappropriate, no? So man yang kwan sa Indian, so looking straight into the eyes of persons while talking, no? Murag kwan jud ay kwan gyapon sila face to face ang ilang pagka istorya, no? This does not however means that they are dishonest or mga dishonest, no? So or insincerity. Moreover, Indians interpret waving of hands from side to sides. Sa Indian po diya, side to side hands or makigsik hands po sila, no? So, as no or go away. So, while it means hello among Westerners, for Filipinos, switching of lips means to refer to something or someone. So, when some ask, where is my box? Instead of responding, there it is, the response may be witching or puckering lips. When see people from the cultures, such facial expressions may be taken to mean seductions. It is important then not to be judgmental or to rush into the interceptions culture sometimes every emotionally. So laylay man jud ang kwan sa negosyo, nasa gawas, nasa basta laylay, no, maka-encounter ka ana sa kumpanya ninyo. So next, type of communications according to purpose and style. So finally, communications may be classified according to purpose and style. Earlier, formal and informal communications have been discussed in relations to organizations. Communication similarly, the types of communication in relations to purpose and style are formal and informal, however, rather than focusing on the transmissions. So, na-focus sila sa pag-transmissions of message and sa message flow, the focus here on the communication setting, the model of delivery. So, formal communications employs formal language, delivers oral or in writing form, lecture, public. So, laylay lang sa kwan nila sa formal language, laylay ang delivers oral or in writing form, lecture, public. So, laylay lang sa kwan nila sa formal language, laylay ang pangsulat, no? Mao ni ang language delivers oral or in writing form, lecture, public talk, speeches, research and project proposal, sport and business. So later among the others are all considered formal situations and writings. Note that while lectures, speeches are delivered orally, the texts have been drafted out carefully, and writing will before they are delivered to inform, to entertain, and to persuade are the main objective of that type of communications. So on the other hand, sa informal communications, certain does not employ formal language. It involves personal and ordinary conversations, so with friends, family members, or acquaintance about anything under the sun. The may be oral, as in face-to-face, ordinary or everyday talks, the phone, school, or writing, as in the case of email message and personal notes, letter, or text message. The purpose is simply to socialize and enhance relationship. So that's all. Thanks for listening and watching.
So good day everyone. My name is Kenneth F. Bandola from BSF 1B. So my assigned topic is understanding communication. So what is understanding communication? Communication is the process of transmitting information from one person to other to create a shared understanding. The word is communicare. The word communication actually came from the Latin words communicare, meaning to share or make common. Sender. Encoding occurs when the message sender converts a thought, idea, or fact into a message composed of a symbol, picture, or words. Encoded. The message is the encoded information being sent or just sent. Channel. The channel is the medium used to send the message to the receiver, including voice, writing, graphs, videos, intranet, the internet, television, and the body language. Decoded. When the message received, sees, read, or hear the message, it gets decoded. Decoded is the interpretation and translation of the back into something understood by the receiver. The decoded information is hopefully the same as the information and the sender intended and communicate, but that's not always the case. Feedback is one a check of the success of the communication. The communication received send a new message back the original sender, and the original sender accesses to see if the receiver understood original message as intended, repeating or paraphrasing the original message, asking for clarification, or asking your conclusion are correct, or forms of feedback. Noise. Noise is anything but blocks, disturb, or changes anyway the same the sender intended and communicate. Communication is other words, or in other words, in the communication process, the sender translates, encodes information into words, symbols, or pictures and passes it to the receiver through same medium. Translate is the sender receive the message, translates, decode into a message, but is hopefully the same as what sender intended. Noise can enter anywhere in the process, making the message received different form from one sender intended. Feedback creates two-way communication that helps to check on the success of the communication and ensure that the received message was accurate. Unfortunately, through the problems rise at any point during the communication process that makes the message ultimately receive difference from the one sent. This barrier can came from the sender or the receiver or the original noise.
Hey everyone, my name is Jonah Misiligya Space. First, my report about communication model. The communication model is the three most well-known models for communication are linear, interactional, and transactional. Originally developed by Shannon and Weber in 1948, this model describes communication as a linear process. See Figure 1.1. This model describes how a sender or speaker transmit a message to a receiver or listener. Models communication are conceptual models used to explain the human communication process. The first major model for communication was developed in 1948 by Claudius Shannon and published with an introduction by Warren Weber for Bell Laboratories. Communication models are systematic representations of the process which helps in understanding how communication works can be done. Models show the process metaphorically and in symbols. It is also used to understand how the receivers will interpret the message. So, ang communication DI is also considered as a non-verbal or verbal. It is like a small conversation between two or more person or a group. So ang communication model DI is mag-need gihapon taan ni gadgets, like example mga cellphone, mga via chat, mga messenger ing ana to communicate others para makakuan ka sa ubang tao, makikommunicate ka sa ila. We can use gadget na lang para makuan nato sila, makontak, or else makaistorya man lang nato sa ila, or makareceive man lang tag mga kuan sa ila ha, mga feedback nila ingana. Then, ang Aristotle communication model is, according to the Aristotle model of communication, the speaker is the main figure in communication. The audience must believe in the speaker's ability to easily put his money where in his mouth is. An example, a politician. The speaker gave a speech on a market square during an election campaign. Aristotle model is mainly focused on the speaker and speech. The audience is passive, influenced by the speech they speaks, and communication communication process one way from speaker to receiver. The speaker must organize and prepare her speech beforehand according to the target audience and situation. So, ang Aristotle model DI is mo ni siya nag-need kag audience, which is kining ikaw ang host or ikaw ang gihimog speaker sa mga okasyon, like example mag-rally, na mag-birthday party, naay kuan, ikaw ang gihire to speak to para mag-speaker sa ilaha. Then you need audience man, so kailangan nimo mga tao para kibali ang mga audience mo na imong receiver. Then sila ang mohatag sa imong feedback kung unsa ka maayo mo speak, kung unsa pud kung giunsa nimo pag-prepare ang imong kaugalingon nga makikatubang pod sa ilaha, which is naay mga audience na muhatag sa imong feedback, which is mao nang receiver. Kung sa communication, ang receiver is to communicate ang kung sa communication ang receiver, which is you need gadget, or else kanang mag-chat mo para makakuha kag receiver or makakuha kag feedback sa ilaha. Pag-abot sa Aristotle model, mao ni siya maggamit ka og kaning audience. So you need a person nga muhatag sa imo feedback, muhatag sa imo og kaning para naay mukuan sa imuhang speaking ing ana kung unsa nakakalindot goro, I think, or mao na ang imuhang receiver is ang audience. Kung sila po'y maghatag sa imuhang impact kung unsa ka maayo mo speak sa kung naamay mga okasyon or else mga kuan na mga situation. And yun lang. Thank you. God bless.
This morning everyone, I'm Rodney Ibarli Paderes from BSF 1B, and my topic for today is Laswell's communication model. In 1948, Harold Dwight Laswell described communication as being focused on the following W's, which stands for who says, what's in, which channel, to whom, and with what effect, as seen in the model below. The whole process of communication begins with a communicator, which stands for who Sending out a message stands for what? Using a medium stands for in which channel. For a receiver stands for to whom. Experiencing an effect with what effect? Afterwards, the process may be analyzed through the content sent, as well as the effect on the recipient of the message. While this model is similar to Aristotle's in the sense that both are linear and have the same components, Laswell's also differs in that there are 5 variables involved, with the addition of 2, medium and effect. The next model is Shannon-Weaver's communication model. Claude Elwood Shannon and Warren Weaver's model of communication was introduced in 1949, a year after Laswell's for Bell Laboratories. Originally, it was conceptualized for the functioning of the radio and television, serving as a model for technical communication and later on adapted in the field of communication. In this model, other components such as noise, reception, destination, and feedback have been identified. Other terms such as information source for the sender, transmitter for the encoder, decoder for reception, and receiver for destination were introduced. So, this is the Shannon-Weaver's model of communication. Information source, which is the sender, transmitter, which is the encoder, channel, and decoder, which is the reception, and receiver, which is the destination. So, could you explain the communication flow in the preceding model? Yes. How different is it from the first 2 models discussed earlier? For my answer, it is clear and it can easily be understood. It gives more information. The reader can easily grasp the meaning it comes.
Good day everyone, my name is Aleno Trais. Today, we will talking about one of the famous model of communication, the Berlos-SMCR model of communications. What is Berlos model of communication? Berlos-SMCR model of communications represent the process of communication in its simplest form. The acronym SMCR stands for sender, message, channel, and receiver. Berlos-SMCR model of communications describe the different components that form the basic process of communication. Because these communication tools also emphasize the coding and decoding of the message, it can be used for more efficient communication. Who is Berlo? Berlo his full name is David Kenneth Berlo, was an American communication theorist. In 1960, David Berlos wrote a book entitled Proceso de la Communication, or the Process of Communication. Berlos, his model includes verbal and non-verbal communications. It also considers the emotional aspect of the message. David Berlos' model of communications focused on 4 elements. Name the source, the message, the channel, and the receiver. Under of these are different factors that affect the communication process. This model is an example of linear model of communication. There is the example of Berlos-SMCR model of communications. Includes 4 components that describe the communication process. The different components in the model are influenced by various factors. The source is the origin of the message, also called speaker, sender, or the encoder. Communication skills. It is the skills of the individual to communicate. Attitude. This includes attitudes toward oneself. Knowledge. Communicating also means that the persons need to be knowledgeable about the subject or topic. Social system. The social system includes the various aspects of the society like values, belief, culture, religion, and general understanding of the society. It is where the communication takes place. Culture. Culture of a particular society also comes under the social system. According to this model, people can communicate only if the above requirements are met in the proper or adequate proportion. Encoder. The sender of the message from where the message originates, it refers to as the encoder. So the source encodes the message here. Message. Content. The body of the message from the beginning to the end comprises its content. Element. It includes various things like language, gestures, body language, and etc. Treatment. It refers to the packing of the message and the way in which the message is conveyed or the way in which it is passed or delivered. Structure. The structure of the message refers to how it is arranged, the way people structures the message into the various parts. Code. The code of the message refers to the means, truth, with it is sent and in what form. Channel. It refers to the five sense organ. The following are the five senses: hearing, seeing, touching, smelling, tasting. Communications occurs through one or more of these channels. Hearing, the use of ears to receive the message. Seeing, visual channel. Touching, the sense of touch can be used as a channel to communicate. Smelling, smell also can be a channel of communicate. Tasting, the tongue is a muscular organ used in the act of eat and taste food. Decoder, the person who received the message and decode it is referred to decoder. Receiver, the receivers need to think all the content and element of the source, so as to communicate response to sender effectively. Berlow's model believes that for effective communications to take place, the source and the receiver need to be on the same level. Only their communications will happen or take place properly, since the source and the receiver should be similar. Thank you.